So now we'll be looking at ISO 42001, which is a global blueprint, and I will show you the shape of it and the four things it actually demands, and then we will be drafting a policy together so it stops feeling like abstract. So now let's try to understand ISO 42001 in terms of three characteristics: global scope, risk based, PDCA cycle. So, global scope, this applies whether you build AI or merely use somebody else. And that surprises people. A recruitment agency that buys an off-shelf screening tool is in scope. And you are accountable for the AI you deploy, not just the AI you code. Also the SAG agnostic. A 12-person startup can certify. Risk-based, a standard doesn't hand you a checklist of control to install blindly. It asks what would go wrong with your AI in your context. A check a chatbot recommending recipes and a chatbot recommending medication dosage gets very different treatment. So two AI specific risks worth naming for is data biases, which we covered, and model drift. Now the model drift, the world changes, but your model doesn't. So, for example, a fraud model trained on 2019 spending patterns quietly became wrong in 2020 because everyone is spending over change overnight. So the model didn't break, reality moved. Now the PDCA cycle, it's a plan, do, check, act. If anyone has seen ISO 9001 or 27001, it's the same engine, and that's deliberate. It boils onto management system you might already have. Plan your control, do them, check whether they're working, and act on what you have learned. Then loop it back. So it's a loop, not a project. And AI governance has no done date yet. So there are three pillars that carries the standard. And we also call them as the core elements of ISO 42001. So it is a leadership and policy, AI risk assessment, and AI system impact assessment. So when we talk about the leadership and policy, we are referring to a top management. And this is deliberate and it is a part of organization most want to skip. You cannot delegate AI governance to a keen engineer or call it done because the hard calls are business call. Do we accept slightly less accurate model that's a fairer? Do we deploy in the market at all? And engineer is empowered to answer. So accountability is a requirement. It is a role, not a committee that shares it. Now for the AI risk assessment, a standard risk thinking, like you identify what would go wrong, judge likelihood and severity, document the control, and keep the record. And the AI specific twist is the risk categories, whether it's a bias, whether it's drifting, explainability, or adversarial manipulation. Now, once we have identified the AI risk assessment, we also have its impact assessment. And this is generally new, and it's where AI governance depart from classic quality management. So it asks about effects on people and society. Is this fair? Is this transparent? What happens to someone wrongly rejected by it? And it requires before deployment, not a post-incident review. That distinction, risk to us versus impact on them, is a single most confused point in the standard. So in next part, we'll be looking at how we can flag that now. So now let's look at the practical implementation of how to draft an AI policy. So I have given you a weak policy, which is too vague, and I have given you a strong policy on the left, which is ISO compliant. So if you look at the weak policy, we will use AI to make our company better, but it's incorrect because it's not that it's badly written, but it's that it is unauditable. Nobody can ever demonstrate compliance with it. Nobody can ever be found in breach of it. So, a policy nobody can fail is not a policy. So, if we look at the strong policy, we are starting with transparent, fair, respects user privacy, which means we are showing the actual commitment an author can test against. Now, the continuous monitor RAMS. It's a continuous improvement hook, the PDC loop from two slide back we have referred to, which was planning, doing it, checking it, and acting on it. Now, who is responsible? We need to give a name. So, the Chief Risk Officer, CRO, is accountable. So, if we are comparing it with IT, will handle all AI risk, which is accountability theater. IT cannot decide whether your landing model is ethical. So, the failure model at the bottom of the weak column is exactly three gaps: no continuous improvement, no stakeholder commitments, and no accountability here. So now we're looking at the risk via system impact assessment. And it's the most important conceptual distinction in ISO 42001. So clause 6.1.2, which is AI risk assessment, it has direction of harm, which is inward. So what would hurt the organization? One vendors goes bankrupt and your products stop working, or data poisoning, which is corrupt your model, or someone extract your model weights. So the goal here is to make sure that we protect our assets, we protect our reputation, and the continuity of the business as well. So most companies already do a version of this instinctively because the harm lands on them. Now the clause 6.1.3, which is AI system impact assessment. So if you're looking at the direction of harm, which is outward, who would be hurt? The resume screener that filters minority candidates. So the healthcare AI that misdiagnoses. So the goal here is to protect individuals and the fundamental rights as well. So if I'm looking at some of the examples, a resume A discriminates, but it's cheap, it's fast, and nobody has noticed. But if you're looking at the business risk, it is low, but human impact will be severe. So if you only run the risk assessment that system passes, then precisely the gap 6.1.3 exists to close. And note that uncomfortable corollary doing the impact assessment can produce findings that are bad for the business but right for the people affected. And that's the point here.